Hey guys, hey, I'm back off of my copyright hiatus. I've tried to record the intro to this video probably like 20 times, but I always say something really bitter and offensive about HBO or Sky Sports because they're giving me these bullshit copyright infringement notices. I just want to say fuck you guys. HBO, you guys are a bunch of clowns. You don't know shit about boxing. Sky Sports goes the same to you. You guys are fucking idiots. But anyway, I'm back. And we're going to be discussing this crazy, whatever the fuck you want to call this fight between Mayweather and McGregor, the spectacle. And we're going to talk about whether Conor McGregor actually has any boxing skills. Like, we know he's not a boxer. We know that, right? I heard that he had like 112 amateur fights as a boxer, though. And the irony in that is also that he uses mostly boxing skills during the course of his MMA fights, right? He does do some kicks. He doesn't really take people down. You know, if he knocks someone down, he'll ground and pound them. But I don't usually see him taking people down. He usually tries to keep it standing and use his left hand or his right hand to kind of probe and make you react. When you don't react, that's when he starts painting you with the shot. So in my opinion, Conor McGregor definitely has some boxing skills, although he doesn't have a boxing style, which is going to hurt him during the course of the fight. But we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about like boxing theory versus MMA theory at the end of the video. I usually do that stuff at the beginning of the video, preface what we're talking about and whatever. But I'm going to do it at the end of the video, so anybody who wants to just get into the boxing skills of Conor McGregor during the course of his fight with Van Heerden, we can do that. The only thing that I am going to... No, I'm not. Let's just get into it. Fuck it. So comes out with a body shot, a sweeping hook, right? Not a real punch, sweeping hook, and then sees that, Van Heerden sees the left hand coming. He knows that the straight left is coming. So he gets his hand up, he gets his left hand up to block it, and then ducks down. But, Conor McGregor has really good eyes, right? He doesn't just explode into that and throw the punch. He's actually using it to probe and see what his opponent gives him before he throws the shot. So there you see him probing with his right hand, looking for an opening, controls his head with his elbow, and then lands a left hand at the top. One thing I do want to point out right here, though, is McGregor's footwork right here, how he's walking across the ring, right? He's got a good pace, right? He doesn't have to worry about kicking. He doesn't have to worry about getting taken down. He doesn't have to worry about like all this like plethora of extra attacks coming at him. So he feels confident to just walk in. But there's a difference between the way that Van Heerden is creating space, hopping around, and McGregor is walking, right? And it's going to stop him from being able to be in punching position when he's walking like that, especially when he's crossing his feet. Whereas Van Heerden, although Van Heerden's crossing his feet right there as he walks to his left, which is kind of common when people walk toward their opening, walk away from their guard basically. Here we got going back to the boxing. The actual technique. McGregor actually has some pretty good knowledge about how to set up his punches. So here he is sticking his right glove out, right, probing, gets Van Heerden to react, controls his head, and lands a straight left. Beautiful, beautiful boxing. Unfortunately, he doesn't really get his his right hand off of him before he lands the shot, but even after he lands the punch, right, controls his head, boom, and pushes off of him and creates some space, that's going to help him with his defense, showing that he's got some real boxing skills, right? He doesn't, rip that straight left by, pulling his shoulder back after controlling Van Heerden's head, but really interesting because you don't always see high-level tactics like that when you see a conventional fighter versus a conventional fighter. And what I mean by that is like a right-handed versus a right-handed fighter, right? Fighters that are not mirroring each other, right? But fighters that, when you have two orthodox fighters fighting each other, they use very crude examples of feinting and probes. Not necessarily probes, but just feints and how they kind of just explode out of their guard to land punches. But here you see Conor McGregor, and I know that he's a left-handed fighter, and I know that Van Heerden's a left-handed fighter, but for all intents and purposes, you can use the same analysis as a right-handed fighter versus a right-handed fighter, because the knowledge about how to fight each other, right-handed versus right-handed, left-handed versus left-handed, is exactly the same, because they have the same stance as you, right? Well, there's an interesting thought, and I'll talk about this at the end of the video. But anyway, let's go back to it. So setting up his punches, boom, landing that good shot. Not just exploding out of his guard, not throwing needless punches, but showing, patience right here. Boom. Really, and Van Heerden's he's no slouch, right? He did get kind of beat up a little bit by Errol Spence, but this guy is twice as big as Mayweather's gonna be, right? Mayweather's, a tough, strong, rugged fighter. And please don't stop watching the video. I'm not saying that McGregor's gonna win the fucking fight. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that McGregor is showing some really high level techniques that is not usually is very rarely seen in boxing, when you have an orthodox fighter versus an orthodox fighter, or a fighter who fights in the same stance as you, I'll say. But anyway, getting back to the film study. Patient, probing with his jab, probing, holding his head up. He's not going to get away with that against Mayweather. You can't have both of your hands out at the same time, right? But showing that he has knowledge of that, right, to control him and land a shot. And then, why did it go back 2 frames? I don't know. But boom, lands the body shot, and then lands a headshot, and then controls him on the way out, right? McGregor's showing that he has some boxing skills, right? Van Heerden feints him. He thinks that he's going to go high, but McGregor goes low, and then Van Heerden able to kind of counter his shot with the body shot. And that is another interesting wrinkle, right? Is Van Heerden's kind of going to be able to score at will. Not bad right there, right? When you just explode out of your guard, he's able to slip the shot and land a body shot. Good fundamentals of boxing. The only real, I'm not sure exactly what McGregor does here. We don't have but blocks a shot. But we don't have the different camera angles, right, where they pan out or they show you something else, so you get better looks at different angles. But that's okay. McGregor showing his first real amateur, right, style. Gives him a probing right hook, and doesn't land the straight left. Maybe he thought that Van Heerden was gonna duck more. Maybe that was set up, because this is not the first round that they've sparred either. McGregor being kind of a clown. I don't know why he's switching stances. I don't know what he's doing right there, but goes back to his boxing style. Van Heerden, and now this is an interesting facet of sparring. This is one thing that people don't understand about sparring. So see how he feints him, gives him those jabs, gets him to lean away, and then he takes the opening, but he doesn't throw that hard shot, right? He could have thrown that fucking hard. He was in position. He could have landed it. But sparring is a learning process, right? Neither one of these guys are landing hard punches. They're not trying to light each other up, But McGregor's getting to work on his ability to set his punches up, right? And I don't know who he was fighting at the time, why he was fighting Van Heerden in the first place. Van Heerden's a good fighter, sure, but why would he be fighting a left-handed fighter? I don't know. But anyway, this is the kind of stuff that you're supposed to see in sparring, right? You see crazy people going all crazy and sparring and hurting each other. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to not only refine your tools in sparring, but work on your craft, right? Your game plan, how you set punches up, how you defend yourself, right? And save the hardship for the all-out stuff for the real fight, so you don't get injured. But anyway, getting back to it, another probing jab, right? Looking for openings. Ooh, and that's going to be one problem that McGregor has fighting Mayweather, is because of their style, right? The MMA, well, we'll talk about it later. I'll talk about it at the end of the video. My bad. I'm getting carried away. Easy to hit, not great static defense, right? And this is really interesting. Goes to show him the straight left, right, to land it. I guess he was thinking that Van Heerden was going to come in with the jab again, so he comes in with the straight left, and then he kind of sits there, right, and leaves his left hand out there after missing the shot, right, because the shot didn't wind up being there, but showing that he kind of can control his opponent after a missed punch, right? He knows not to just fly back into his guard and wind up being out of position, showing that he needs to, after making that move, he needs to adjust to what his opponent is going to do. You know, being a little bit of a clown right here. Going to the body, and that's interesting. Lands the body shot and then takes the counter to the head, not following up the body shot, just kind of being a little easy to hit. Ooh, interesting right here. So if you check this out, gives him the jab, right? He's probing with the jab, and Van Heerden slips to the inside of McGregor, right? Now he shows him the jab again and expects him to do the same move to slip to the inside, but Van Heerden, being a pretty well-schooled boxer, knows that he can't react in the same way to the same feint, right? So he doesn't. McGregor doesn't land the shot, right? But interestingly, he still leaves the punch out there, keeping his balance, staying in position to counter with a right hook if he wants to, and then taking a step back. You know, for all intents and purposes, most boxing coaches would tell you that that guy's an idiot for doing that. They would tell him, no, you got to get your hands back ASAP. You got to do that. That's not how boxing works. You know, if you don't control your opponent when you're done punching, or stay in a position to where you can punch or land punches, then that's when you get countered. And as you can see, he does it. Van Heerden's ready to pounce, right? So he takes a step back, and Van Heerden does come in with the jab anyway, and then misses it and winds up getting kind of lit up with the boom, with the straight left, right? Kind of giving him like the pull counter from his jab, and following up with a good jab too. So McGregor has some boxing skills for sure, right? I think that he's going to have a lot of problems with like the rhythm and timings. Like right there, just not expecting a jab to come at all, not landing the uppercut, right? And like, I think that there's such a huge difference in the way that people fight in MMA and in boxing that his tools, his timing is just going to be a little bit off when predicting when his opponent is going to punch. But anyway, getting back to the boxing skills, gives him the jab, pins his gloves up, holds his head up so he can't duck down, and then comes in with another shot, right? He's not going to get away with holding his hand there the whole time, but it's good that he's showing these kinds of skills and going out on these kinds of limbs. Ooh, not bad right there. I don't know what he throws before this left hand, but when he's coming back up, controls his head, and then is able to give him like a little slapping left hook. And again, they're just sparring, right? I think he does eat a shot himself too to the body. Yeah, but because they're just sparring, they're not throwing these punches hard, right? They're sparring partners. They're trying to help each other get better. Boom, understanding positioning when he dips down. McGregor gets ready for the uppercut. You know, kind of sloppy, changing positions. And like that's a lot of what you're doing when you're rotating around the ring, you know. So this is really interesting. If you look at the way that he cuts off the ring right here, he kind of ducks down, stays in punching position as he's stepping, ready to throw a punch. These are the kind of like boxing movements that he's going to need when he's cutting off the ring, you know, kind of Triple G-like, where you're stalking your opponent and not just walking around and chasing them, right, or following them rather, not chasing, but using skills like this to kind of cut the ring off, staying in punching position. That was explicitly that one move. Obviously, you see he goes right back to just walking, right? Steps, can't even follow up his jab after getting his opponent out of position, right? Because he's walking. But finding ways to stay in position while he's moving around the ring, that's going to be a challenge for him. Again, probing with the jab and then landing the straight left. You know, that's really high level stuff. You know, you don't see a lot of fighters doing that. Boom. Again, probing with the jab, shows him the jab, gets him to react, and then lands a left hand. You know, kind of on the top of the headgear. You know, might not have landed. Like, he might get under it. But again, boom. Peppering him with the jab. And not throwing hard jabs, right? Just touching him, making him react, and then landing the straight left after. Can't really tell what he does here. But showing that he has high-level offense and a high-level ability to not only set up his punches, but controlling the distance between the two of them, right? Boom, feints him and gets him to move out of position, and then comes in with the right hand, or the right hook, and then I don't know if he lands the left hand, but look at how easy he's able to get Van Heerden out of position. Boom, boom, and then start setting up his offense, and then immediately back to controlling the distance between them. You know, McGregor's showing that he understands a lot of the concepts of combat, right? Setting up his punches, controlling the distance. He has a lot to work on with the actual boxing technique, with figuring out when your opponent's going to punch, like timing them, right? Because the timings are so different, you know. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end. Again, a good eye for what's open, baits him into that uppercut. Feinting again. Boom. Controlling him, right? Controlling the distance. Ooh. Again, another very, very smart tactic. The pull, right? I don't know what name you want to call that, but the block removal, right? Removing his defense removal, I don't know. And then punching him in the head. And again, McGregor is not hitting him hard, right? And also, I'm not exactly sure how many of the punches that Van Heerden is landing, right? He's probably landing a pretty decent amount. But, boom. And look at the way that he turns off of this shot, right? This is going to be a huge problem for McGregor, right? The way that he turns off and uses his foot movement. Like, people from the MMA world are like, oh, that movement. He's got great movement. Man, shut the fuck up with that shit. Like, maybe for MMA, but if he comes at Mayweather like this, right, boom, even though he's turning off, right, he's not in position, right, and he almost gets tagged right there. You know, luckily Van Heerden's not Mayweather, right, but he's not going to get away with crossing his legs like that. But anyway, again, you know, kind of plodding around. I don't know what round this is. Oh, actually, you can see it on the clock. It says round 4. But again, crossing his feet, you know, you don't really want to be doing that when you're following your opponent around the ring. And that's the end of the video. I know there's another one that you watch that Van Heerden's team put out. They talk about how he was lighting McGregor up, and this is sparring, right? If you're really trying to hurt your opponent and you're not trying to work on specific things, then you're doing something wrong, you know. So you do have to take everything that you see in this video and all the sparring training videos with a grain of salt, because we're not in McGregor's corner, right? We don't know what his coach is saying. Hey, work on this, try this, see if you can get this to work, refine your timing for this movement. You know, we don't know what they're working on, right? Did they just throw him in the ring? Hey, you wanna fight, huh? No, they don't do that. That's not what the fuck you spar people for. But anyway, so talking about the differences between MMA and boxing, I did this video. I put it up on another channel that I started after I got banned, and then UFC kind of took it down right away. I'm not even sure if you can watch it right now, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going to include any of the actual UFC content, but some things I want to talk about are the movement that he uses. Like, if you watch him just walking around the ring, it's probably a little better for MMA, right? The smaller steps, right? The walking, making sure that you're not out of position, because in MMA, and also, like, there's not a lot of upper body movement, right? When he's kind of stalking, right? Not moving from side to side and, you know, ducking down and, you know, shooting in, right? That's one thing that's really interesting for boxing, right? Is boxers, like, the boxing style is like you step with your jab and you come in, or the movement is just so much more dynamic in boxing, because you don't have to worry about someone kicking you in the fucking leg, right? You don't have to worry about somebody giving you an elbow when you close the distance. You don't have to worry about them just tackling you and, you know, taking you down and putting you in a submission. You know, there's so much more that you have to be worried about in MMA than you do in boxing. And I think that's going to negatively impact McGregor, because he has to adjust his style, and he's not as seasoned in using those kind of upper body movements or those head movements. As I like to refer to it, having an active guard. He doesn't have those tools, because if you use those tools in MMA, a lot of times you're just going to kind of use a head movement and your opponent's going to feint you and then kick you in the face. So you actually have to be more balanced. You have to have your weight very much more evenly distributed on your legs so they don't get kicked out from under you. And like, I don't know that much about MMA. I watch a lot of MMA. I try to figure it out too, but like when they get on the ground, man, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like, who fucking knows? But it's fun to watch. I love watching MMA as well. But another thing that's really interesting about this fight is, and I think I talked a little bit about it, when you have two conventional fighters in boxing, right? And I'm going to use this example, John Pascal and Eleider Alvarez, right? That snooze fest of a fight, right? Where Eleider Alvarez just walked Pascal down, and Pascal walked from corner to corner, and they were, both of them, they're good fighters, right? John Pascal's an ex-world champion, and this and that, and Eleider Alvarez is like an Olympic medalist and some, I don't know, like some amateur star. I think he's from Cuba. I don't know anything about the guy, but these are both very seasoned fighters, right, for boxing, but neither one of them showing the skills that they need to set their punches up, right? If you watch during the course of this video, and I'll play the video again, you can see McGregor setting his punches up, right? Probing, like watching his opponent and throwing punches based off of his opponent's movements, right? Getting him to react to that shot right there, probing, setting up the left hand, using his lead hand to control the distance between them and land punches to control him. You see that he has the skills to set up his punches. And now the interesting thing is, in a fight like Eleider Alvarez and John Pascal, that's like your average world championship fight, right? Like, 5 years ago, before you had all these Russians coming onto the scene with their very high level offensive abilities, you just had a lot of people using like kind of ABC boxing tactics, and the way that they set their punches up is by simply waiting for their opponent to put themselves out of position. I know I fucking talk about this shit all the time, but it's the most important part about boxing, is making sure that your opponent is not in position when you throw punches. And that's what, John Pascal was doing. He was waiting for Eleider to lead so he could counter him, right? That's why a lot of high-level fighters wind up being labeled as counter-punchers, or, like Mayweather has so much success, being a counter-puncher, letting his opponent go first because they're not going to be able to figure out how to, deal with the counter-punching. And that kind of stuff actually breeds the probing. People learn from that. They learn, oh, I got to make him think, So it's good for the evolution of the sport. But you see fighters also like Canelo, right, who has very few tricks for setting up his punches. World champion, very good fighter. He slips punches well, and he's able to capitalize on his opponent's mistakes very well. But he's not able to make his opponents make mistakes, right? Which is what Conor McGregor's doing right there. Like right there, look at that. Shows him the jab. So first, in this video, shows him the jab, right? So any second, McGregor shows him the jab, doesn't react to it, and because he doesn't want to get caught with a shot, he throws a left hand, right? Now he shows him the jab. He knows he's not going to react to it because it's a probe, because of the fact that what's his name has been getting lit up with the probes. Whenever he would react to that jab, he'd get countered. So now he knows, oh, he's probing me. So what does McGregor do? Oh, I'm probing him. So he uses the block removal defense, switching up his tactic, right? Showing like multiple layers and understanding with the ability to set up his punches. McGregor is a very good fighter, and I would say on average, I'm not sure if I said this in this video already, that UFC fighters on average are better fighters than boxers. They understand the concept of fighting, of combat, much better than boxer, because anytime you make a mistake in UFC, it might be the last mistake of the fight, right? So understanding how to make your opponent make a mistake is much more commonplace with feints and with probing and with everything, because if you like Jose Aldo, right? You come in, you throw a huge punch, and then you get countered and knocked out with one punch, right? You just can't do that, I think Jose Aldo does try to set the punch up with the jab first when he fights McGregor, but because it's like a very basic level feint, he just throws it, doesn't wait for Conor McGregor to react, and McGregor reads it well and then knocks him out. That's what happens when you don't know how to set up your punches. And I'm not saying that Jose Aldo doesn't. Please, McGregor fans, don't roast me for that, or Jose Aldo fans, don't roast me for that. But in that particular instance, I don't think he does. I'd have to rewatch the tape. I'm just assuming. I've watched it a few times. How many times can you really watch someone like a 13-second fight? I don't know. But Conor McGregor showing, a really high-level ability of setting up his punches. Although his movement, his timings aren't always the greatest. He's not hard to hit, right, by any stretch of the imagination. He's not always in position to punch. He's got a lot of boxing fundamentals to work on. But McGregor has the tools, and the interesting thing about this, like I was saying, he's doing this against a fighter that's fighting the same stance as him, right? Where this kind of knowledge is so much less commonplace than it is in the boxing world, like against John Pascal and Eleider Alvarez. These guys both had like tons and tons of fights, world champions. Eleider Alvarez obviously on his way up, right? But an amateur star, and they don't even have the skills to set their punches up that McGregor does, right? They are probably sharper with boxing skills. They have better tools because their tools are refined for boxing, whereas McGregor's tools are mostly refined for the sport of MMA, right? Like eating a good shot right there, poor guy. But McGregor understanding how to fight, how to set up his punches, he has just much more understanding of combat. And the reason that this is really interesting is because usually it's much more commonplace for a fighter to have these kinds of skills when they're fighting from a southpaw fighting a right-handed fighter, right? If you watch Keith Thurman fight Danny Garcia, he throws the worst probes and feints, or the worst feints ever, right? No probing. He literally does the same combination like every time. It's a feint to the head and then a body shot, head shot, or a feint to the body and then a head shot, body shot, and throwing up these like same rhythms, or like, head, body, head, or head, body, body, varying where he's throwing the punches, but always starting with one crude feint that he doesn't even wait for his opponent to react to make them make a mistake. He just hopes they make a mistake so he can land a punch. So you've got that very crude ability to set up his punches. But then immediately, if you watch the first 4 rounds of him fighting Luis Collazo, he's using lead foot dominance, he's controlling the distance between them with his jab, and he's using not just crude feints, but he's using probing with his right hand, or with his lead left hand. He's probing him and setting up his shots, making Collazo make mistakes, showing extremely high-level fighting or high-level ability to set up his punches. And the reason that I find this so interesting is because fighters are so much better at doing this, and McGregor as well, at doing this against a right-handed fighter. Because he's left-handed fighting right-handed fighter, he's much better at setting up his offense against right-handed fighters than he is against left-handed fighters like Van Heerden. And here you see verifiable proof that McGregor knows how to set up his punches. He knows how to fight. His tools, obviously, they're not geared towards boxing, right? But he knows how to set up his punches. He has a great understanding of combat, not just boxing, but combat, and he uses very good boxing skills to set his punches up. And I think that he's going to have... Well, this is kind of all I want to say for this fight. I did do, like I said, I did do a video where I broke down the Eddie Alvarez fight, where he uses a lot of feints and he uses a lot of probes, and that's how he kind of knocks Eddie Alvarez out. And Eddie Alvarez, I know, he's no Floyd Mayweather. Everyone in the comments, I fucking know, man, I know. But he shows up, he's much better at setting his punches up against right-handed fighters. So it's going to be really interesting to see him fight Floyd Mayweather, who's not only smaller, even though he's faster, he's way more athletic. His tools are way sharper than McGregor's. It's going to be much more interesting to see him fight Floyd Mayweather. I'm not saying I think he's going to win, and I'm not going to give any predictions or whatever I think is going to happen. But here we have proof that McGregor understands how to fight, not just against left-handed fighters, not just against right-handed fighters, but just combat in general. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Yeah, thanks, guys.